Warning: the following episode contains a description of a time when I tried to unalive myself. If you have a sensitivity or are triggered by this, maybe skip this video, okay? When I returned to Grand Rapids, it had been another 3 days on the bus, and I was just exhausted. I was a zombie, you know? The whole ordeal, I think it was only 2 weeks ago that I had buried my pets in my childhood backyard. I'd gotten on a bus and gone all the way down to Florida for 3 days. And then there was like 5 or 6 days I spent in Florida, followed by 3 more days to ride back. So yeah, I think I crawled back to my dad's place. I found my mattress that I had stashed, you know, a couple weeks before, and I just dropped it on the floor and I collapsed. And I think I slept for about a day and a half. And when I woke, I took a long hot shower. You know, the kind where you just stand there with the water hitting your face, trying to wash it all away. Yeah, I don't think I stopped until the hot water ran out. My dad's poor hot water heater. Then I shaved my face and jumped back in the shower for what little of the hot water remained. And then I took a hard look around because there was no pets. There was no Amanda. There was no green, there was no money, there was no car in the driveway, there was no job to go to. I had nothing. And it was hard to ignore the voice. It said, "Bishop, why are you here? You tried so hard to get away, you know, you tried so hard to escape. Why are you here?" So I called my mom and I said, "Hey Mom, can you help me get a ride to my grandma's house so I can borrow her car some more?" So my mom came and got me. She asked me how I was doing, what I was feeling. What could I say, you know? Sometimes there's just no words. I had tried so hard to hit the reset button on my life, and I just felt like such a failure, you know? I couldn't do it. So I told my mom I'd be okay. Thanks for the ride. Thanks for getting me out of Florida. And I gave her a big hug, and then I jumped in my grandma's car. And I guess I had some priorities, you know? No cigarettes, no Mountain Dew. My dad's house, it never had food in it. My dad was gone all the time. So if I was lucky, there'd be this much milk in the bottom of a gallon of milk. But most of the time, that milk was kind of lumpy. I tried to look up Amanda, see how she was doing, but after a bit, I don't know, she didn't seem real excited to see me. And I don't blame her. I guess I had given up on her and she had given up on me a long time before, so I went and saw my friends group, but something weird kind of happens when, you know, you tell people goodbye and you're leaving forever, and then you come back a couple weeks later. It just gets kind of awkward, I guess. Yeah. My journey to Florida was in July of 1997, and the following month, August, I was driving my grandma's car southbound on a road called Clyde Park. And I was in another accident. I know, it was my 4th accident in 4 years, guys. 4 in 4 years. So I drew a helpful map, a little diagram here. Let's see. Here's your Bishop. I am in this red rectangle. And right beside me in the right lane was a blue vehicle. It was a big truck or a big van. I wasn't paying attention. He was trying to make a right turn, and there was a little old lady in this green vehicle who couldn't see me. She thought it was clear. She tried to make a left turn. And much like my second accident when I was trying to deliver pizzas, it just happened so fast. Like, she pulled out, She appeared in front of me. I don't even think I slammed on the brakes, guys. I was smoking a cigarette, listening to my music. I was in my own world, and bam. So again, it wasn't my fault. And honestly, I felt horrible. You know, this little old lady, like her head hit the window just like mine had done a couple years back. And yeah, there was blood on her window. So I felt so bad. The ambulance came, they took her away. It was her ticket. But again, Bishop, another smashed car that you were at the wheel of. It felt like another big kick in the ballsies, right? Like, how can the universe keep doing this to me? I was just driving. I was doing my thing. But again, sometimes that's just how life is, right? I don't know. A lot like with Florida. My mom said to me, sometimes we try stuff and sometimes we fail. And that's just how it works. That's life. And I understood that because of all my years doing the role playing, being the dungeon master. You take your dice, you shake it a little bit, and you drop it. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't. So I had tried something. I tried to restart my life. I failed. So now things are pretty bleak, No car means no way of getting to my friends, no way of buying the green, no way to get groceries. I mean, I'm stuck, right? I'm stuck in my dad's house in his basement. I just remember so badly wanting to be out, wanting to stop waking up, I slept a lot and I was so depressed. It felt like everything I had done hadn't worked, I was a failure. And there was no comfort, My mom would come to visit me, or she'd pick me up, or she'd bring me to my grandma's so I could try to help her once in a while. And even my grandma was getting really bad, guys. I ended up walking. I walked a lot. After you lose your car, that's what you do. So I walked one day to a grocery store that was nearby. And I went in and I applied for a job. I had to do something, right? No cigarettes, no Mountain Dew, no green, no car, no Amanda, no nothing. Just go, Bishop. Go do your thing. This place used to be called Great Day Foods. Now it looks like it's a family fair, so they changed hands. But yeah, once upon a time, I worked in the dairy department. It was okay, I mean, you hung out in the cooler. You threw a bunch of gallons of milk around. Sometimes you'd open a box and there'd be like shredded cheese or like sliced cheese or butter or yogurt. And you put it on the shelf, right? I don't know. It was rough because I had to walk to work every morning. I had to stand on my feet, do the labor for 8 hours, and walk home. I got used to bringing a backpack because every day after work I would buy some groceries. Sometimes I was able to get a coworker to buy me some beer, which was always helpful because without a car, I was no longer able to go to my friends to acquire the green. But I don't know, day after day, coming home to the same empty basement, no pets, not even a goldfish. I just lost all my desire, I didn't want anything anymore, and it just sucked. It was rough. I remember I had this huge debt from my Equinox loan, like $6,000. And I remember this. Okay, so my initial purchase with the Equinox, the MLM thing, I had to have more than $5,000 worth of product. And I think shipping and handling on all that was like $100, $200. So I applied for a loan for $6,000 because then I could take the extra $700 or $800 and make payments, I would ensure that for at least 6 months there or so, I wouldn't miss a payment. So by doing that, I somehow gained good credit. And with good credit comes credit card opportunities. And if you're a 20-year-old kid and somebody sends you a credit card with a $1,000 limit, I guess I wasn't very good with the money. But yeah, I had no hope of saving up for a car, or, you know, it was just, I was paying off a loan. I was paying off my credit card, going to work every day. What little money I had left over, I'd buy beer just so I wouldn't go crazy at night. And I remember typing in my journal all the time, just typing about how crappy I felt, how miserable, how much I wanted to, like, just be done, you know. I can't really describe how sad I felt, you know. I was crying a lot. On my days off, I just wanted to sleep, and I didn't want to wake up. I had given up on finding love, you know, after the Amanda thing. After the 4th car accident, I didn't care if I ever drove a vehicle again. I just, nothing seemed to work, you know. Everything seemed to go wrong all the time. So in September, with no car, not a lot of money, nothing but sad, I had to get clever, I guess. I don't know. It's such a hard, painful thing to talk about. One day I dressed all in black, my black moccasins, much like I had done for my dad's cousin Kathy's funeral. And I went and got a black garbage bag. And I took that garbage bag and I shook it around a whole bunch, and I caught a bunch of air, almost like you'd inflate a balloon, right? So I took that garbage bag and I stuck it over my head, and I took some duct tape and I wrapped it around my neck as tight as I could get it. And then I had some old handcuffs. They were like a prop for Halloween. They weren't like real handcuffs, but, you know, I assumed they'd do the job because I was desperate. I was determined. Somehow I found motivation. So I laid in bed with my head inside that garbage bag, and I put my hands behind my back, and I put those handcuffs on as tight as I could get them. And I just started to breathe, you know. I breathed out all the oxygen from the inside of that garbage bag. I watched it inflate and exhale, and I just kept thinking to myself, just let me go, you know, just let it all go. And as the oxygen got less and less, there was this bulge behind my eyes, and my chest got real tight. And I was crying, and my head hurt real bad. And I closed my eyes as tight as I could, and I just screamed inside my mind, you know, let me go, let me go. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. And I tried to push with all my might. I tried to push my soul out of this little hole in my forehead. They call it, what, the third eye? And I don't know, things went black, you know. I went black. I think I passed out. I woke up a short time later and found that there was a hole in my garbage bag right about where my face was. And somehow my hands, still handcuffed, were in front of me. They were resting on my stomach. I think what happened was my horse took over, you know? He said, okay, I'm gonna get you out of this, Bishop. I'm gonna fix this. So I don't know if you guys know this, but handcuffs, if you're a real tall, skinny guy, there's a way that you can bend over, twist your hips, and wiggle your handcuffs underneath your hips, under your legs. Maybe I'll show you sometime. It's a pretty cool trick. I don't know if short people can do it, but I believe that that's what happened. I wiggled myself, and then I reached up and I tore the bag open. Guys, have you ever seen like a prisoner and they've got like a weird chain? It looks real odd. It's like a chain that goes around their waist. It's right above their hips. Why they do this is because they know that you can sometimes slip hands behind the back, under yourself, under your legs, and now have hands in front of you. But if you put that little chain around your waist and you connect those handcuffs, ta-da! Now you're pretty stuck. I've never seen anybody shrink or shrimp out of that one. That's what they call it, to shrimp. So again, I had failed. I had tried to end my life. I tried to escape, and I just couldn't, you know? Something inside, something in the universe said, Bishop, you just can't do this. So I cried again, and I just sort of went numb, and I just said, you know what? Whatever. I don't care. I'll just do this. I guess as the days went on, I started to come up with weird ideas like, you know, maybe you're doing your punishment. You're serving your time because maybe in a previous life, you did some horrible stuff, Bishop. So now you're going to be tortured. You're going to be a white guy in the middle of the 90s, and you're going to be stuck in your dad's basement with no car and no drugs. Yeah. So I carried on. I went to work, you know. I didn't feel like I had a choice. I had tried everything. I tried escaping. I tried hitting the reset button, going to Florida, and then I tried to unalive myself, and none of it worked. I remember during this time that my mom would come and help me. Like, she would drive from the south side of Grand Rapids, where my childhood home, where all my friends were, all the way up to like the northwest corner where my dad's place was. My dad was kind of a weird guy, so he didn't like to spend much money. He was kind of poor. So he would oftentimes tell me not to turn the heat up. You know, we're not burning that gas. We'll survive without heat. He had a washer and dryer, but his dryer was natural gas, and he said, no, we're not hooking that up either. So I had access to a washing machine, but no dryer. And my dad's thing was, well, you can just hang your clothes up on the clothesline, you know? You can just hang your clothes all over the house if you need to. It's a big house, you know? Hang some stuff in a closet or hang some stuff here or there. So I don't know, my mom would pick me up and bring my laundry to her house, and then I would stop in and do my grandma's laundry. My mom would bring me groceries. She'd ask me how I was doing. She just cared, you know. She did as much as she could. She was juggling a lot too with her own difficulties, but she didn't give up on me, you know. Sometimes she would leave me with $20 and she would bring me to my friend's house so that I could, you know, acquire some much needed green. I think it was around January, right after the new year, that my mom had talked to a friend of the family. My dad had an uncle. I think his name was Uncle Walt, with a W. And Uncle Walt was kind of a mechanic. He had access to like vehicles, and he happened to have a vehicle for sale. It was a 1984 Honda Civic. Yeah, you guys know the Civic? It was a little four-door, and it was like light blue. I don't know. But his price tag was pretty good. He only wanted $1,600 for it. And of course, I couldn't come up with that kind of money. But beginning of the year, income taxes, my mom said she could help me out if I paid her back. And I was like, well, hell yeah, Mom. I got all this other debt. Just throw it in the pile, right? I'll pay you, of course. She said, okay, I'm going to talk to your Uncle Walt. So Uncle Walt says, well, the car's in good shape. The engine runs good, but it's got like an electrical issue. The turn signals don't work. So my mom called me back a couple days later, and she says, Bishop, this car is good, we're going to get it, but I need to leave it with Uncle Walt for a few more days because he's got to fix the turn signals. And I was like, Mom, I don't need turn signals. Who needs those? You know, I'm just going to work and back. It's right down the street. It's a couple streets, Mom. There's only twice that I would have to use the turn signals. It can wait. No, Bishop, we're going to do this. Oh, okay. So after a while, I finally got my hands on a new car. It wasn't new, it was just a used car, but it was new to me. And the turn signals worked, good turn signals, but in the process of fixing the turn signals, my Uncle Walt disconnected the windshield wipers. So I didn't tell anybody. I was like, you don't tell anybody this. I don't need windshield wipers, I'm fine. And oh my gosh, to feel that freedom again, to not have to walk to work. Because guys, this was January. I was walking through snow. There was a little shortcut. It was through a golf course. In the fall, you know, October, November, you just had to watch out for some flying golf balls. But in December and January, there were like feet of snow, and I would trudge through it just so that I could shave off an extra mile of my travel. So yeah, to have a car, to be able to get groceries, you know, to bring home a 6-pack of beer, and to have the freedom to go drive to my friend's house now and to reacquire, you know. Because guys, none of my friends were willing to come pick me up. None of my friends were willing to hang out with me or come to my rescue unless I had green, unless I had something to offer. And without a car, I had nothing. So yeah. Now, sweet, juicy freedom. Oh my gosh, thank you, Mom, so much. It was a turning point, you know, and the new year had just come. I was about to file my income taxes too. Yeah. Then one day, a strange thing happened. I was at work, you know, doing my thing. I was wearing my white coat, which is like a rule for like dairy workers. It's almost like a doctor's coat. It's a big white, I don't know. And I looked up and there was my friend Goofy, my old friend Goof. And I was like, whoa, what are you doing here? And he's like, you know, buying some crap. So here's my friend Goofy. And with him, he had these 2 girls. And one was a beautiful blonde. Her name was Barb, big old smile. And one was an even more beautiful brunette. And she said her name was Mandy, even bigger smile. And I looked at Mandy and I said, hey, is your name short for Amanda? And she said, yep. And I said, well, Goof, what are you guys doing later? You know, like I'm out of here at 5. I got some, do you want to burn? That was our code word. We had the code handshake. The code word, do you want to burn? Was like smoking time. He says, yeah, sure, why not? Okay, well, where are you at? So he gave me his address. And I don't know, the rest of the day went by pretty quick. I hadn't seen friends. I hadn't seen Goof in a long time. After work that day, I jumped in my new car and I went and looked up Goof and his new friends. I found them hanging out in a little apartment not too far from my dad's place. And what I learned was that it was an abandoned apartment. Like the previous owner had said, you know, I'll pass. This one right there. So yeah, the previous owner had gotten sick, gotten mad, decided to bail, but wasn't able to cut the lease immediately. So there was like a month or 2 there where they had just left. And through friends of the friends, Goof had decided to occupy this space, and it had furniture, it had a TV, it had electricity, a bed. Pretty much just a free place to hang out, you know? So we smoked and oh my gosh, I laughed, I smiled. It had been a while. I had always been real close with Goofy, but okay, here's the thing. I'm an Aries, we are fire signs, and Amanda was a Leo, which is also a fire sign. Goof was also a Leo. His birthday was a couple days later. And we just clicked, you know, fire is good with other fire. I learned that Barb, a little blonde girl, she was a Gemini. And sometimes Gemini can be a little bit crazy, but they're air signs, and air is a fuel for fire. Mandy was Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the 3rd fire sign. Aries, Leo, Saggy. And if you know anything about astrological signs, there's one pair, one couple that is the most compatible out of them all. Out of the whole zodiac, all 12 signs. Let's say maybe you're like, I don't know, a Capricorn, and you happen to hang out with a Scorpio. You guys might be like 60% compatible, 62. You know, there's a bunch of factors. There's trust and values, communication, sex, the whole thing. So some compatibilities are real high, some are real low. But out of them all, Aries and Sagittarius, we are the lovers, we are the fire, we are the ones that they write the epic stories about, the Romeos and Juliets. This one with the Hancock, Will Smith. Just indescribable, you know? Is it undescribable? For a while there, that's kind of all I did was get out of work and go look for Goof and Barb and Mandy, you know, and they were friends, and it felt so good just to have somebody, you know. Guys, I wasn't looking for a girlfriend. I didn't want to love her after the Amanda thing. I didn't think I was good at relationships or love or living with someone. I didn't want it, you know. I was scared, and I was scared to get my heart hurt. I was scared to hurt somebody else's heart. So we just hung out, you know, and we smoked a lot of green, we played cards, we watched telly. I don't know. I sort of felt sorry for Mandy because Goof and Barb were a thing, and I didn't like that Mandy felt like some sort of third wheel, you know? And they didn't have much, you know? I don't think Goof had a job. Barb and Mandy, I don't know. I didn't ask a lot of questions. I just enjoyed their company. So for me, you know, if I could help out Mandy, if I could bring her cigarettes or bring her food, or, you know, she had nobody to do laundry with either. So I'd say, hey, do you want to come have some dinner with me sometime? And that was it. It was just hang out, just food, just laughter. But yeah, she was awesome. I learned over the course of, I don't know, a few weeks that Mandy had some stories. I said, Mandy, how old are you? And she didn't really want to answer that. I think I later learned that she had just turned 16 a couple months before. And here I was, this 20-year-old guy. Mandy, how come you're not in school? She didn't really want to answer that one either. Mandy, are you kind of homeless? Are you a runaway? And again. Mandy just wanted to smile and laugh. And I really liked that about her. I really liked that. So before I can tell any more of Mandy's story, I got to back up because Barb's got a really crazy story. So once upon a time, this was back, I don't know, early 80s. Barb was the youngest of 3 daughters, and her parents really liked to party. Not just the green and the alcohol. Her parents did the heroin, the crack, whatever they could get their hands on. It was all good. So one day, Barb's mom and dad got into an argument, which sometimes happens, you know, when you're doing all the drugs. Barb's dad went out and got really drunk, like super drunk. And he went to a store called Kmart. Do you guys have the Kmart? It's kind of like a grocery store mixed with a general store. You can buy almost anything from the Kmart. So Barb's dad was probably there to buy more alcohol, but he was pretty snockered. And he walks by the sporting goods sections where they happen to have all the bows and arrows and the knives and the guns. And Barb's dad walked up to the counter and he says, "Hey now, how much for them there guns?" "I want the big one." And you know, the kid behind the counter was like, "Gee, sir, I don't know. This one's, it's like this much." "Well, I don't know if I got that much. How much for like the medium-sized gun?" So the kid behind the counter says, "You know, here you go." "Yeah, I'll take it." "Yeah, put it on the counter." So he slapped down a wad of cash and he took his brand new gun and he stuck it in his belt. And he turned to walk away with his bottle in hand and he says, wait a minute. I might need some of them there bullets. What kind of bullets goes in this gun?" And the kid behind the counter says, "Well, it's 9mm. Here you go." So that day or that night or early morning, whatever it was, Barb's dad walked into a Kmart totally intoxicated and bought a handgun and a box of bullets There was no background check back then. There was no check your ID. It's the great Americas, folks. You can go and just buy a gun. So Barb's dad went home, got into the argument again with with Barb's mom, his wife, pulled out his gun and shot her. The bullet went into Barb's mom's neck, and she laid there bleeding. Barb's dad passed out. Barb's dad went to jail for, bad stuff, being a bad guy. Barb's mom, however, she managed to live. The only problem was she became quadriplegic. Quadriplegic, it means all 4 of your limbs do not work. You can't move anything from your neck down. So Barb's mom could talk, she could breathe, she could look and see and listen, but basically she was stuck in a bed for the rest of her life. So this was pretty tough on Barb. Her and her 2 older sisters, mom's stuck in bed, dad's off at jail. But one day a lawyer came to visit, and the lawyer said, "Ma'am, we think we've got a case here. We're going to take all your hospital bills, all your pain and suffering, all your medical everything for the rest of your life, and we need to provide for these 3 daughters. We're going to sue Kmart because it's their fault, because they sold them a gun and they probably shouldn't have." So they went to court, and the Kmart lawyers said, "Hey, now wait a minute. This isn't really our fault. He was just buying a gun. We sell guns all the time." And the lawyer, he says, "Hey, this guy was drunk." Kmart says, "Well, that doesn't matter." Well, he went and made a quadriplegic vegetable out of these 3 girls' mother. So Kmart decided to settle out of court. They gave Barb's mom $3 million. I don't know, it was astronomical. It was a huge number, and Barb's mom was now suddenly rich. Yeah, she couldn't do much. She had a really fancy wheelchair, a little powered one that, her daughters could move her around the room. She had in-house, what do they call the in-house care, in-home care. So a nurse was there 24/7 for the rest of Barb's mom's life. But there was no supervision. These 3 daughters, they came and went as they pleased. Mom couldn't stop them. They invited their boyfriends over. Again, mom couldn't stop them. So Barb grew up in a very unstructured environment where there were no rules and there was nothing that Barb had to do. If she wanted to drop out of school, okay. And when her best friend Mandy said that she wanted to drop out of school too, they were both like, okay. Mandy would tell her mom, "Hey, I'm gonna go hang out with my best friend Barb. I'm gonna spend the night at Barb's house." And okay. So the 2 were very much a combo. Barb with Mandy, Mandy with Barb. They went together everywhere, they did everything together, and so I guess they weren't technically homeless because they could always go to like Barb's mom's house, but it wasn't a pleasant environment because Barb's sister's boyfriends were there. You never knew who was gonna be there. I think that's actually how they acquired this apartment, Goof and Barb and Mandy, how they found this apartment. It was one of Barb's sister's boyfriends. It was a drug hangout. And when the guy got arrested, the apartment became available. So here's Bishop, right? Just dropped into this mix, having no idea. I didn't learn any of this until quite a bit later, and I didn't care, honestly, I was just happy to have friends again. I can remember one night we were sitting in the apartment. It was late. I don't know. Barb and Goof had gone to the bedroom to make some weird noises, and Mandy and I were in the living room trying to ignore the noises. We were watching Saturday Night Live, and laughing, and I was on the floor, she was on the couch. All of a sudden, the musical guest, it's Tori Amos. And wow, Tori Amos was one of the artists that Amanda and I had listened to a whole bunch. She was one of our favorites. We knew every word to every song. And of course, the song that Tori Amos performed on Saturday Night Live that particular night in that apartment with Mandy was called Little Earthquakes. If you guys don't know this song, go look it up. It's pretty cool, pretty powerful stuff. And my eyes were glued to Tori, her piano. My ears were listening to her voice, every note. And I just sat there and watched and stared, and tears streamed down my face, and I didn't know what to say. Mandy jumped down off the couch, and she came and sat next to me, and she gave me a hug, and she seemed to understand, you know. It was just little earthquakes. So after that night, I don't know, guys, I fell for her hard. I know, it wasn't like there was a cell phone, a smartphone. There were no dating apps, okay? I didn't swipe through like 100 ladies and pick the one out that was Mandy. I didn't. I wasn't looking for her. I wasn't predatory. I was scared. And it just felt like the universe had said, here you go, Bishop. You know, here's someone you can love, and here's someone you can go to work for, and you can bring her a sandwich on your lunch break, and you can smoke with her. Because unlike Amanda, Mandy liked to get high, and she would get high with me, and we would get high together, and we would drive around, and we would visit friends, and yeah, lots of good times in that apartment. Barb, Mandy, Goof, and I, we would play strip poker. There was always nudity. All four of us were highly sexual people. And me with my credit card, I learned that there were some things that you could do with credit cards were pretty cool. I went and found us a hot tub that you could rent for an hour. So all four of us, butt naked, sitting in this hot tub. We had smuggled some smoke, smuggled a bottle in, looking up at the stars, you know. Epic. Just fun times, right? I don't know. She was my escape. 6 months ago, I had been in Florida and I had wished for death, you know, and it wasn't more than 4 months ago that I had actually tried to escape my life. And now to have something to come home to, something to work for. I imagine it was kind of like what Amanda did when she would go to work and come home for me, you know? I was doing the same with Mandy. Go to work, make some money, buy some cigarettes, maybe get some alcohol. Now you've got a reason to do it all, Bishop. In February, it was Valentine's Day, and I had my Valentine. I bought her a little stuffed animal, a little flower. We had some awesome dinner. And then at the end of the night, Mandy looked at me and she said, Bishop, I want you to make sweet, nasty love to me. And I was like, oh my gosh. You guys, if you're a fire sign, an Aries, a Leo, or a Saggy, and your partner is not also a fire sign, and you're starting to wonder why there's no passion, there's passion, okay? Fire, we do it best. I fell in love with her. I'm pretty sure she fell in love with me. It was booms. Lots and lots of booms. I was in their apartment one day and I was taking a shower. I looked down at my nipple ring, the one that I had pierced for my dad's cousin Kathy, and it was looking a little bit crunchy, a little bit grody. Is that the right word, grody, with a GR? So I took it out and I took some soap and I, rinsed all the crunchies off, and I went to go slip it back into my nipple, and oh, shit. It didn't want to go back in. And oh my gosh, I panicked. I got to get this back in. I got to cram it back in there. It's got to go in. Nope. Guys, it might be a little different for females, but for males, like your nipple, it stays soft pretty much. I don't know what the trick was. I was 20 years old. I said, Goofy, I got this thing. You got to help me, man. You got to grab this nipple, this ring, and you got to just cram it in there. Goofy, I don't care. I don't care how bad it hurts. You got to get it back in there. And oh, how he struggled. Of course, Mandy wanted to help. Barb wanted to help. What about ice? You know, what about heat? What if we just tweak your nipple a whole bunch? No, didn't want to go back in. And I was sad. I was sad for a little bit, but Mandy, I would look in her eyes, she would give me a kiss. It was hard to stay sad for long. But as the weeks went on, I started to notice that Mandy, something wasn't right. And I was like, hey, you know, what's going on? She said, well, the previous owner of this apartment, they told us we got a week. We got 7 days, and then their lease is expired. They're going to come in, they're moving everything. Bishop, Goofy, Barb, and I, we're going to be homeless. And I said, wow, that sucks, you know, like, okay. I could understand her frustration. I said, girl, why don't you come stay with me, you know? My dad's basement's kind of cold. I had to offer it because I can't let this woman that I love, you know, be homeless. No. I didn't want her to go back to Barb's house. They didn't want that either. But in the back of my noodle, my dad's voice was there, and it was like, Bishop, no girlfriends at the house. I'm serious, Bishop. No girlfriends at the house. So I was a little bit torn. But my dad was gone all the time, you guys. He was gone from he would leave Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and wouldn't make it back till Friday night. So for 5 days there, I had weekends off. You know, I didn't work the grocery store during the weekends, so I brought Mandy home to me. And we made my dad's cold basement a little bit warmer, you know. We had food, sometimes we had alcohol. I tried to always have green. We rented a lot of movies. We kept each other sane, and I was happy, you know. I think Mandy was kind of happy too, but there were days when I'd have to go to work, and I would leave at 7:30, and I would race home on my lunch break, give her a quick kiss, give her a little, you know, a cigarette or two. And it wasn't we had TV. I showed her how to use my computer. You know, but to sit in my dad's basement alone, I knew how that felt. Trust me, I knew how that felt. I didn't want that for Mandy, but it wasn't like we had a lot of options, you know. It was tough for her to find a job. She was 16 years old, high school dropout. And then one day, it just sort of happened. I think it was bound to happen. I was at work. My dad came home on a Tuesday, you know, Tuesday at 10 a.m. And he walked into his front door, and there, standing in the kitchen, was Mandy. She was making some scrambled eggs, probably wearing not much, maybe just her underwear. And my dad was like, who are you? And she said, well, I'm Mandy. I'm Bishop's girlfriend. And my dad said, is Bishop here? She said, no, he's at work. Do you know what time Bishop gets home? Because I need to talk to him. It's important. Mandy says, I think it's about 5 p.m. So my dad was waiting for me. And he was just livid. He was upset. He was mad. He was like, Bishop, you remember the rule. I made it clear. You promised. I said, no girlfriends, Bishop. I said, I know, Dad. I'm sorry. He said, how long has this been going on? You know, has she been living here for a long time? I said, no, it's just because she's homeless. He said, how old is she? I said, well, she's 16. Bishop, what are you doing? You cannot, no, you're harboring a runaway. I'm harboring a runaway. We cannot do this. Bishop, no. I said, Dad, she's my girlfriend. I trust her. I love her. No. My dad is Aries. So when the fire is not burning together, Dad, I know, I'm sorry, but I love her. I need her in my life. She makes me happy. She's everything, and I can't, no. Bishop, if I see her again, I'm gonna change the locks when you're gone. I knew my dad was serious. I knew there was nothing that I could do or say, especially because of Mandy's age. You know, I didn't know if I was breaking a law. Yeah, what do you say, right? So it was tough because if I couldn't be with Mandy, I was miserable. And if I went to work, what happened to Mandy? Where would she go? You know, what would she do? Barb's house happened to be way, way, way down in the south part of town, even past my friends. So this was more south, almost the edge of town. And my dad's place was up at the northwest corner, and I only had the one car, and Mandy couldn't drive. She didn't have a license. So as happy as I was, as ecstatic, you know, felt so alive, so in love, so happy, you guys. Here was my dad. I didn't know what to do, you know. I didn't know how to feel. There was this pressure. There was this huge pressure. Yeah. I remember just wanting to escape, you know. That had been my solution. Just run away, you know. Grab Mandy, grab your credit card, and just go. So one day, I don't know, we just headed south. Went all the way to a place called Warren Dunes. If you guys don't know, a dune is like a huge sand hill. It's like a ginormous sand hill. And this place right on the edge of Lake Michigan, it was someplace that my family had gone way back when I was a kid. This ginormous sand dune, it was probably about 30 stories tall, straight up, you know, super big incline. And you could climb all the way to the top after a while. It was not easy. And you could look across the lake and you could see these little tiny skyscrapers from Chicago poking up through the water. It was beautiful. Really awesome place. If you've never gotten a chance, go check out Warren Dunes, okay? So Mandy and I climbed it. It was still fairly cold. I don't know, it was probably March. But we held on to each other and we kissed and we said how much we loved each other. And I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to go to my dad's. So we carried on south. Went to a place called South Bend, where I had been with Amanda not too long ago. I found a hotel, and this one said it had an in-room jacuzzi, or a hot tub in the room, private. You could rent it all night. It was part of your hotel. Oh my gosh. Mandy and I sat in that hot tub in our hotel. Whew. We had all the fun. And in the morning, I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to my dad's cold basement. I didn't want to go back to my dad. There seemed to be no solution, you know? So I said, Mandy, let's carry on. Let's keep going. Filled up the gas tank, bought some more cigarettes, and we drove to Chicago. We were trying to look up a friend of a friend, somebody that Goofy had known, but we couldn't find him. Chicago got a little disappointing. So instead of turning around and going home, I went north. And I ignored the snow because there was a blizzard coming or something. I would take I stopped at a gas station and I grabbed this little thing. It's a squeegee. Is that what you guys call it? A squeegee? So I would roll down the window of my car and I would stick my arm out the window with this squeegee and I would scrape it just enough so I could see down the road for 60 seconds. Roll the window back up real quick because it was cold. And then rinse and repeat, you know. We did this all the way till I reached a place called Green Bay. Green Bay, Wisconsin. Found another hotel. Just filling up my credit card, you know. And in the morning, might as well keep going, right? We drove up through the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, went across the Mackinac Bridge, me with my squeegee. And this whole time, Mandy's listening to this cassette tape of mine. It's the band called Heart. And Mandy knew every word in that whole album, you know. It had some great hits, Heart, You guys know Heart? I love to listen to her sing. Yeah. We spent the next night in Traverse City. And then the following morning, eventually, we had to go back home. You know, we had driven all the way around Lake Michigan in March. It was quite an adventure. But, as happens with every adventure, sometimes you just got to go home. I sort of found myself just not wanting to work, you know. It was weird because it felt like I had the American dream. With Amanda, I had a house, we had 2 cars, we had our dog and our cat, which was a lot like, you know, kids. We had our friends and, you know, video games and the weed and food, and I don't know, when you go to work, it was so easy just to put stuff on a credit card, you know. Just stay home with Mandy all day. Be carefree. Carefree. As much as I wanted to sit at home and do nothing, it just wasn't very sustainable, you know. The credit card, it would buy gas and it could buy cigarettes, but there was one thing that you couldn't buy with a credit card. So I remember asking Mandy one day, I said, "Hey girl, do you have like any friends or family like we could go on a road trip, we could go visit them? Preferably friends that would smoke green with us?" And Mandy looked at me and she was like, "Well, yeah, actually." "Well, tell me girl, where are they at?" She says, "They're in a place called Columbus, Ohio." And I was like, huh. So I pulled out my atlas. This was like a big book of maps, right? Like we didn't have the Google Maps, so you had to get everything was on paper. This is a book, showed you all the interstate highways, every city. And yep, there it is, Columbus, Ohio, right in the middle of Ohio. So I thought, you know, maybe 7-8 hours, okay. So we filled up the gas tank, bought some peanut M&Ms, and hit the road once again. That evening, we showed up at Mandy's aunt and uncle, Aunt Tracy and Uncle Dwayne. So they were like, "Oh my gosh, Mandy, you could have called." Surprise! But they welcomed us. Oh my gosh, we went and hung out in their garage, smoked some super good green, played some video games, ate some food. And they had like a little inflatable mattress in their basement, so Mandy and I spent the night. Now when I woke up, oh my gosh, I was excited. I wanted to see the town. Columbus, it's a big city, you know. Grand Rapids, pretty small. Columbus, lots of kids, lots of college kids. This is like a university, right? The Ohio State University is in Columbus. And as we drove around, I saw all the sights. I fell in love. There were no ghosts, you know. There was no ghost of Amanda on that corner. Or there was no time that my family, with my mom and my dad, we went to that store or that place. It was totally new. And the cigarettes were cheaper, and the Mountain Dew was cheaper. I think we stayed for 2 or 3 more nights, and I didn't want to go back. But we had to. I didn't want to overstay our welcome with Dwayne and Tracy because they were such cool people, and they were so generous with us, you know. But we said, "Hey, we'll be back, okay? We'll be back." Back in Michigan, things were still the same, you know. My grandma always needing help, always getting worse, slowly deteriorating. I had quit my job. I could stay in my dad's basement with Mandy, you know, as long as he didn't see her. That was the rule. So we'd hide down there. We had a bathroom, we had TV, we had whatever we needed. But it just didn't work, you know. As the days went by, the weeks went by, My credit card started to fill up. Mandy, where can we put you? Where can you go? Girl, we gotta do something, you know, the stress, the worrying. And as much as I didn't want to worry, I just wanted to be happy. Yeah. So Mandy says, you know, I could probably go to Columbus. I'd have a place to stay. Dwayne and Tracy would help me get a job. I said, really? I didn't want this solution at all. This was not good because it meant that I couldn't be with Mandy, you know? But we tried it. I drove her back down there. I gave her a big hug and a big kiss, and I let her go. I hoped it was the right thing to do, you know? When I called her, I don't know, her voice, she was miserable. She said she was trying to find a job, but when all she could do was walk, you know, this wasn't the good part of town. And again, high school dropout, right? She said everywhere she went, there were these strange guys that were opening the doors, trying to get her to go into their car. And oh my gosh, this just made me so freaked out, you know? My girl's trying so hard. She says, are you finding a job? And I said, no. Jobs can be hard to find sometimes. It broke my heart to have found this amazing woman, this awesome person, and so I put some more gas on my credit card and I drove all the way back down to Columbus. I picked her up. She said, Bishop, don't ever do that. Don't ever leave me again. I said, okay, Mandy, I won't leave you. But it was still the same, you know, more of the same. No solution, no money, no house. Just couldn't do it. I would leave Mandy at friend's house. I would bring her to Barb's house. And it would just be horrible. It would suck, you know? Why couldn't I be with her? Why couldn't I have the things I wanted? I didn't want to work. Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. Over that summer, I don't know, like every little thing that happened, every little tiny something just didn't go right. Oh, I would be upset. I would be sad, frustrated. It was so hard to be happy. It was just, yeah, Mandy had come, exploded into my life, and then poof. Now I would drop her off at a friend's house and wonder, you know, what was happening to her? Was she okay? Who was she sleeping next to? So one day, my grandma was in her bathroom. My grandma's bathroom was pretty small, guys. Like, we're talking pretty darn small. And my grandma was a pretty large woman. She fell and broke a couple toes, and she became stuck in her bathroom. This is way before the days with the life alert. Is that what they called that thing, right? The little necklace or the bracelet. This was before the portable phone, cordless phone. Guys, our phone, it literally had like a little squiggly cord, looked like a curly pig's tail, and it was connected to a wire, which was connected to a wall. Like, you couldn't go wandering around your house. So my grandma, she laid there until my mom found her. Her pants were around her ankles. It was bad, guys, and this freaked me out. This freaked me out so bad because I had been seeing it. I was familiar with what was happening to my grandma. So I talked to my dad, and I was like, Dad, this cannot continue. This is not, she needs help. She needs 24/7. My dad says, no, she's fine. She's okay. She's going to stay in that house, Bishop. Dad, I don't want to take care of her. I don't want to be the one that finds her body, you know? Like, that's what we're looking at here, right? She's going to die in that house? I don't know, Bishop. My dad, he just wanted to avoid it, right? I talked to my mom. I talked to anybody that would listen. And at this point, my mind is like in this pressure cooker, this slowly turning vise, and I'm just being squished, you know? Where's my girlfriend? Who's she with? What's she doing? Why can't I be with her? I've got this debt, you know, this loan. My dad not listening. My dad not wanting to understand that it was his own mother, you know? Come on, Dad. Every day I felt like I grew more and more frustrated. So over the course of that summer, I started to put together a little bit of a plan. I was handling all my grandma's stuff, like all of her stuff. Like I would cash her checks, I would write her bills, I would write her checkbook. I did it all. Groceries, pharmacy, cigarettes, everything. And one day when my car broke down, something had gone wrong with the timing. I went to my grandma and I said, Grandma, I just need some money, you know, to fix my vehicle. And she said, well, how much do you need? And I said, I don't know. That's how it worked sometimes. The mechanic, he'd be like, I'll tell you when it's done. So my grandma gave me something weird. She gave me a blank check. It had my name on it. It had her signature on it, but it had no numbers on it. And I thought, huh, that's interesting. In my mind, I just wanted to get away, you know? But having failed at Florida, Ooh. I knew that if I was going to try to get away again, that I would need some money. So over the course of a couple weeks, right around September, October, I went to the back of my grandma's checkbook and I removed 3 paper checks. And I took one of her previous checks that she had already signed, and I took one of these blank checks and I pressed them up against a window with the light shining through so that I could see. It was almost like a tracing. Do you guys, what was the light table? You could trace things. So I took a pen and I traced her signature, and then I wrote myself 3 checks. I think in total about $2,700, but I knew what my grandma's checkbook was. She was sitting on like 8,000 or 9,000. So I figured 27, I'd be okay. My grandma would be okay, because here's the thing. If I were gone, my dad would have to step in. He would have to. There would be no more avoidance. There would be no more, it's your problem, Bishop. You got to do it now, Dad. I went and found Mandy and I said, girl, I'm thinking about going down to Columbus. I got some money. I got a car. Come on, let's go. Let's go start anew. Mandy says, I don't know. I tried that once. I don't know, Bishop. I don't like that idea. I said, well, I'm going to go. I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to stay with your aunt and uncle. You know, I'll get a job. I'll get us an apartment. You can come down. She said, okay. So I put all of my plans into work. I had done this like not too long ago with Florida. I moved all of the stuff out of my dad's basement because I didn't want anything left in his basement. Once it was discovered what I had done, you know, I'm stealing from a family member. I'm stealing from my grandma. I thought this was going to be the end. No going back. I put all of my stuff into a little storage unit. I think it was like $50 a month. And I went and got my grandma some groceries one last time. And I packed up my vehicle, all the important stuff, you know, my pillow, my clothes, my computer. And I hit the road, this time by myself. Went all the way down to Columbus, Ohio. Made my way to Aunt Tracy and Uncle Dwayne's house, and I said, surprise, I'm back. Well, where's Mandy? Well, she's at, you know, she's in Michigan, but she's coming. She's, you know, it might take a little bit. I just need some help. I need a job. I need a place to stay for a little bit. Can you guys help me out? They were like, sure, Bishop, come on. We had become friends at this point. This is a little bit different than Jerry and Bob down in Florida, because Dwayne and Tracy and Mandy and I, we'd hung out, you know, we'd spent some time together. And I was determined. Oh, I was determined. If you've got a job, give me a job. I'm ready to go. It's only now, 27, 28 years later, that I can start to understand what happened. So my role models, my mom and my dad, they were miserable together. Like, they just sat at home and avoided each other, you know? They didn't talk about it. They just, maybe they told themselves they were happy, but they just sat around and they were unhappy. So for me, with my relationship with Amanda, this was how it was supposed to be. You just sat at home and you were miserable. Now, granted, we tried to make the best of it, but this is my programming, you know? When Mandy wanted to go hang out with her friends or go be with Barb or go to somebody else's house and spend the night, have a sleepover, I was like, what? No, this isn't how it works. You're supposed to want to stay with me. This rejection I felt, you know, I couldn't understand it. Now, looking back, I understand it. My horse, it was like, Bishop, when you are with your woman, you're supposed to be unhappy. That's the way it is. You sit at home, you watch TV, and you're unhappy. You might be able to tell yourself that you think you're happy, but you're not. And then my rider, whenever I wasn't with Mandy, it was like, oh, we got to be unhappy because we're not together. So when we were together, I was miserable. When we were apart, I was miserable. And Mandy kept seeing this, and she was like, you know, you're really unhappy all the time. I'm like, well, how can I be happy? We don't have money. We don't have green. We don't have any of this. I got all this stress, you know. Where are you going to spend the night? And she's like, just relax. It'll be okay. Nope. Think back. Think to your first example of a relationship. You know, was it your parents? Was it somebody else? Step parents? How did they treat each other? How did they act? What was their environment? And then look at your earliest relationships, your first, your second relationship, and was there a tendency to like duplicate it? It's cold, guys. It's so cold. Oh my gosh. Can you see my breath? Thanks for watching. I love you all. Share your story. See you next time.